All right, we're live.
I now call to order the May 6th EDTEC meeting at 5 p.m. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Commission Member Warner. Commission Member Warner. Okay. Commission Member Lean.
Here.
Commission Member Case. Commission Member Case. Okay. And Commission Member Congleton. Here. Commission Member Peck. Here. Commission Member Moorhead.
Here.
And Commission Member Allen.
Here.
Okay. And we do have a quorum, and Commission Member Warner and Case are absent.
Okay, did anyone submit a public comment in advance?
I did not receive any public comments.
If anyone in actual or virtual attendance would like to speak, please raise your hand now. *9 is used to raise your hand if you are connected by phone.
There is no one in the attendees list.
We'll now move on to the consent agenda, consisting of the approval of the agenda for today, May 6th, and the approval of the minutes from February, May 5th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? The ayes have it and the motion is passed. And so we'll move to guest presentations, the update on the community events, Mrs. St. Clair.
Thank you. Our next upcoming event is going to be the Spring Block Party. It's going to be on May 19th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. on South College Avenue between 4th Street and Whitman Drive. This event will feature 50+ vendors, live entertainment, and activities for the kids. And we will be accepting vendor applications for this event up until May 12th. And there's a link here if you'd like to go on there and submit an application. We also have the College Place Farmers and Artesian Market. Our opening date is May 3rd. Due to construction at Lions Park, we'll be at Kiwanis Park this year, which is located on Southeast 3rd Street next to Davis Elementary School. It starts on May 30th, runs through September 26th on Thursdays from 4 to 7 p.m. You can come and enjoy live music, farm fresh produce, and support local small businesses. We're also going to feature special event/activity days. Also, the Walla Walla County Health Department is going to be hosting the Kids Club Cash again this year. So you can bring the kiddos and stop by their booth and get them signed up, and they'll get a $2 Kids Club Cash that they can go and use to shop for fresh produce. To let everyone know, the College Place Farmers Market also accepts SNAP EBT. Customers can use their EBT card at the city booth to purchase SNAP tokens to spend at the market. And in addition to these tokens, you can receive up to $25 in SNAP Market Match per day, which can be used for fresh produce. I believe it can be used for herbs, also mushrooms, seeds, and edible plants. And then there's also approved vendors that will accept WIC and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program funds. And for the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program can go to the Senior Center. And I believe they have applications to get signed up. We'll be accepting applications all year long, but memberships are only going to be accepted through June 30th. Then we also have the College Place Freedom Festival coming up, and this year that's going to be on Sunday, June 30th from 6 to 10 p.m. at the College Place High School campus. We'll have many vendors, live music by the Diego Romero Band, and a Columbia REA sponsored fireworks show at 10 o'clock. Vendor applications actually went online today. So you can go to the city website under residents, and then events, and there should be a link to be able to get to the Freedom Festival vendor applications. We also are doing movies in the park. That's going to be at Kiwanis Park this year at sundown. The movies in the park schedule is June 22nd, July 13th, August 3rd, and August 24th. And the city also is open to anyone who would like to do sponsorships for movies in the park, day activities at the farmers market, or any of the other events that we have going on. And of course, we would also welcome anyone who's interested in coming to volunteer. So that's what I got.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the action agenda. The proposed industrial property tax exemption program, Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay, thank you. So last time we met, I introduced this. I attached some additional information because other cities have since added this. So I basically borrowed what they had because they had better information in it. So pretty much what has happened in this avenue is compared to other states to try to get like higher paying jobs via economic development incentives. It's really hard because in this state in particular, they don't really allow a lot of the exemptions that pretty much everywhere else does. So basically the bargain is like, hey, look at the environment and come here. But meanwhile, Oregon, Idaho, other states have more things to bear to the table. Well, in 2021, 2022, the state actually finally woke up and started like adding some additional incentive programs. One such one is this targeted industrial exemption. And what it does is it basically encourages like higher paying jobs to locate into an area. And if you meet several benchmarks, then essentially the property tax would get essentially waived on the improvements, not the land, but the improvements for up to 10 years. It would basically be a negotiation between the city and the entity. Now, basically, in order to participate in this, they would be having to essentially bring at least 25 new family living wage jobs at 23 an hour or more, working 2,080 hours per year, construct minimum 10,000 square feet of manufacturing improvements, and then a minimum improvement value of $800,000. Before we didn't really dabble into this much because frankly, we didn't really have any industrial lands. I mean, we could wish all we want, but you know, if you don't have it, then what's the point? Now that we've annexed in Martin Airfield, that provides a unique window of opportunity because while that property owner is going to save Drive, the airport, what that is going to open up is there is land right up between the runway and Whitman Drive that's like zoned for light industrial, and there have been discussions potentially about trying to get some aerospace industrial in there that would jive well with the adjacent airport. So now all of a sudden there is actually like land to do stuff. And then in addition to that, there is one industrial piece of land in town that already exists in the residential area. It's at Whitman and Evans. That's where Rack and Maintenance Source and then several other smaller industrial clients like Electric Code, and then there's a bakery supplier in there and a couple of cabinet store and some other things. Now, just by enacting this code, this doesn't like force us to do anything, but it at least allows a tool at our disposal where currently there is none. Meanwhile, across the border in Oregon, they're able to do all kinds of stuff like this every day of the week and no one bats an eye. So that's the issue. Because you even have to pass an ordinance like this, like in Milton Freewater. You just go to Business Oregon and say, hey, let's do this. And then they're like, let's rock and roll. Here it turns into a whole thing. So since that time, the city of Richland and Pasco, they have passed this. You have to be in what they view as like a metropolitan urbanized area, and between Walla Walla and College Place, we are. So we do have the ability to create this if we so choose. So what's in front of you is a very early draft municipal code around this, and then covering the areas of where that one industrial building is, if there were such improvements and additional jobs to be made, and then that light industrial area around Martin Airfield, because it at least then allows a tool at our disposal as we're trying to diversify the economy around here. Questions?
Do any of the commissioners have questions or comments from Mr. Rosatello? Okay, then we need a motion to recommend to City Council the creation of the Targeted Urban Area Industrial Property Tax Exemption Program.
Arlene Allen, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. Let's move to staff reports. First is the downtown College Place parking lots. Mr. Zatello.
Hey, thank you. Sherry, if you could click on the slideshow, because I'll be going through that. And then next slide, if we could get to approximately slide number 3. So as you all may recall, as part of our tax increment financing district, we have essentially 4 projects in there. One of such is to try to locate some land for publicly owned parking lots, either get ownership or lease said land, then develop it for parking lots, and then maintain them. Because if we're able to figure out a way to have disparate parking lots along the College Avenue corridor, that would essentially allow us then to waive that parking requirement as you have additional investment along College Avenue, because the fact that everyone has to provide their own parking right now with the weird shape of the lots, that has really stymied investment in redevelopment opportunities along College Avenue. So we had basically a grad student develop a tool to try to pick out properties that would be ideal for this initiative. And you can see the various criteria. So it's very numerically based on current use, new business, accessibility, the amount of trees it has, streams, traffic level, size and space, and then the cut and fill, and then you get your total weight score. Next slide. Okay, so so as you can see here, there are essentially several properties that percolated up to the top. A couple of the issues we have is there are there are ideal ones, but unfortunately there's like, I'll just say other matters at hand where it prevents us from getting them. Like for instance, there were some properties around Hot Mamas that would be ideal, but they're in a trust right now and one half of the trust doesn't want to sell it and the other one does and can't make them. So what do you do? Also across the street is an ideal one too, because Jim McEwen owns that big vacant property right behind the house over here. But as a city, you have to essentially, our guiding light, if you will, is to pay whatever we get basically a third party appraisal. And then we basically have like a deviation of plus or minus 5%. And that's it. That's like the height you can go. So the appraisal for property across the street was around like 344,000. And the owner, and I thought when this number came up, they were joshing us, but they have been like, well, take it or leave it. So we have to leave it. For that property in the middle of the block, it was appraised at 344,000 and they wanted over 750,000. So the law is the law. So wanting something versus what the mathematical market says it is a completely different thing. So as you can see here, here's some of the sites. Please go to the next slide. So what it looks like we're going to do, and we're in the bargaining phase with them right now, is with Walla Walla University. So they do have underutilized properties or ones that are just not at their ultimate best use right now. Now, in general, they have a practice of not selling lands, but they're willing to do like longer term like leases, like 99-year leases. So at least it's something. So some of the sites we're looking at essentially is there is some vacant land on North College Avenue, just south of the Bangkok restaurant, and then there's some empty lands like in the middle of the block. So and they own all of that. So basically aggregating it like into a shared parking lot for the north side of College Avenue. Then on the south side of College Avenue, there's a couple of options we're looking at. One would be to take leasing ownership of that parking lot that's like immediately adjacent to the former Umpqua Bank, because they bought that for the building, but the parking lot isn't really being used for anything. So that's an option. And then there's also a sizable amount of empty land between like where the post office is at and the gas station, and then those homes that are back up on 5th Street where that could be developed as a parking lot as well. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So we had the engineering student just develop very early conceptual stuff of what some parking lots could look like. They're still doing work on this. This is a very early conceptual of what the north parking lot could look like. So basically the northern part, it would come off of College Avenue just south of the Bangkok restaurant and then dip behind the Village Housing Office. And then you would have an exit off on a Whitman Drive. There's actually homes they own on Whitman Drive with necessary egress where it could pop out on a Whitman. So you can see from this one parking lot, you would be able to get 38 stalls. So we're starting to like figure out how to do this. It's just a challenge because I was hoping we could, buy properties, but it is what it is. Next slide. And you can see this is just the drawing of it overlaid against the aerial image. Next slide. And then 401, you can see this. So again, just trying to mark out how you put in the spaces and then redoing the parking lot like to the south of that building. And you can see here, you can get about 39 total spaces. Next slide. And then this is just a drawing with the parking lot and then the aerial image underneath. Next slide. And then this is the timeline of everything the student is working on. So by the next time we meet, I actually should have a more defined report that they'll have the stormwater design, the pavement design, and what this thing is going to cost. Now the thing with the university where we do need to have a set cost on that is going back to this whole appraisal thing. The way it works in this state for these longer term leases is you either can do like a de minimis value of like 5,000 a year or get an appraisal. So I'm waiting to hear back what they want to do because it'll help them out too if we build the parking lots. I would hope they would recognize that. If they don't, we're going to have to hire an appraisal again to set the value, and then it's whatever that is on the monthly lease basis plus or minus 5%. And essentially, that's the environment we have to live in as a local government. And then that is really the totality of this project today. I just want to make everyone aware of it because we've been talking about it for a long time. As of right now, it looks like the path of least resistance is going to be to do a lease with the university, but it's also having to understand that it needs to be like reasonable because it's helping them out too, and it's essentially whatever that appraisal is set at, because people can want what they want, but legally we aren't allowed to be doing that. So, questions? Oh yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So obviously I have some questions about mentioned looking at the space between the gas station and the post office. Is that something that we're actually looking into, or is that something that is off the table completely?
That's actually something I'm looking into. They've shown an openness to at least discuss that. The designs that I just showed you were ones that were ready for prime time because this is like a student doing work. So when you aren't paying someone, there's limitations to the amount of freebies you can get out of it.
Yeah. No, my biggest thing is like I'm right next to the post office, and my clients have never complained about parking on that street because when they come for classes, it's after business hours, but there's just people coming and going all day long on right in front of that building, and they park in front of driveways, they park just literally anywhere, and they're always saying, "Oh, I'll be 5 seconds." And so the parking gets a little bit crazy in that area because of the post office. And so yeah, I was just wondering because I'm very biased in this though. So but that area, I feel like next to the gas station, the post office, especially because the post office has that big parking lot in the back, but they don't open it to the public.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think to fully satisfy the demand on the northern part of South College, it would probably be ideal to prioritize doing something right over by the post office and behind the gas station, because you do have egresses where you could potentially route driveways to College Avenue, 4th Street, even the far dead end of 5th Street. So to me, that would make the most sense there. And then also the Umpqua Bank, just because that's pretty much a path of least resistance. You already have a graded property, so it would be putting in stormwater, new pavement, and make it look nice, and you're off to the races. That parking lot on North College, I think we need something on the north side of the College Avenue, north of campus. That one makes the most sense because the university does have properties on the other side of the College Avenue, but the problem is they also have active uses in front of it. So you would be having a channel traffic like right past like where they have their lodging units at, and it would just and go through someone's, like, it'd be awkward. There's like driveways and all this other stuff you'd have to cut off if you did it on those deep properties on the north side of Whitman, west of College. That's why south of Bangkok makes the most sense, because you could basically go in and out and not cut anyone off in the process. So where we're at is we're going to try to do the leasing on this. It's just a process, because when dealing with the university, you find out they have many like commissions and people in many levels of more commissions than we have, apparently. So yeah.
Anything else for Mike on the parking lot situation? Thank you, Mike. Next is the ELDA CCP LC development.
Yeah.
Mr. Rizzatello.
Thank you. So I want to get this in front of you so you can think about it, because the next meeting there'll be a ask for a recommendation for approval and send it to City Council. So this is one of those projects that's called like when your hand is forced, what do you do? And this is what it is. So I may have mentioned offhand the previous meetings, but there is pretty sizable hotel convention center looking at going at the southwest corner of Myra Road and Whitman Drive. For the most part, a lot of their accesses can go off of Whitman Drive as it stands, no problem. The big issue is when it comes to delivery and freight, because with delivery and freight, what the developers originally wanted, and you can see it in some of the like other drawings, is you go to the overlay 1 drawings. But if you look at those, if you look at some of what was originally conceived, if you look south on Myra, they wanted like a right in, right out that they would have built on Myra Road, mainly for freight deliveries. The problem being is that we do not own Myra Road. City of Walla Walla owns Myra Road. And through various interchanges on this topic, and it's really their own notions of what Myra Road is. They're just like, well, we don't want to allow extra accesses off Myra. And our pushback has been, well, if the developer's paying for it and the studies say it's okay, who cares? Like, and let business in here. And they're like, well, no. And we don't own it. So the issue is, so it's not really our police power. So you really get into a situation where if we want to make a stand, it could drag out for a long time. There could be legal bills and it just gets weird. So what's the path of least resistance? So path of least resistance is that in talking with the property owners, and you'll see it in the first document, essentially, they have determined through their freight that they could essentially get it off of Whitman Drive if that back entrance of the Home Depot. If you could click on the map, Sherry, the Whitman Home Depot roundabout concept. The second one. So they have determined that they could get a truck into their property if a full-on roundabout was built there. And the nice thing is with Whitman Drive, we own it. Walla Walla doesn't own it, so they may not like it, but they didn't want to work with us on right in, right out. So my comment's going to be, well, bummer, let's get a roundabout then. Now the issue is naturally is that roundabouts cost way more money than right in, right out. So a right in, right out on Myra Road probably would have been like $150,000. Full on roundabout to deal with freight is going to be $1.4 million. And the issue is that, developers like, well, that's a little unfair. They're saying no, and then all of a sudden our bill goes up more than $1 million. So there is a grant program through the state, the Transportation Improvement Board. They have an economic development band of money where as long as there's a letter from the developer and in general an agreement agreement in place at a hotel or whatever is happening to bring jobs, they'll consider it for funding. And if it gets awarded, it could be up to 90% that would be paid for with the grant. So the general thought process at this time would be to go after that grant and try to get it done that way. If we are not successful with that, I believe I foreshadowed this in an earlier EDTEC meeting, but this may be a formation of a second TIF district if we're unsuccessful, because that would be a tragedy. You lose a hotel convention center. And then as you'll see in the May business report, there's a lot of other bigger box retail and pad stuff that's directly tied to the hotel, where it's like a whole domino effect if it doesn't happen, which in my opinion, I think could explain why you're seeing the weird pushback from our neighbors, but we need to keep trucking. So that's what the proposal is right now. I just want to put it in front of you because this is one of those things where we've never conceived this because we didn't really need to, and now we have to. So I'm somewhat flying by the seat of the pants at the moment. So I want to get in front of you in case there's any issues with it, because really I want to get this in our 6-year transportation improvement plan and then pursue grants and get this thing so we can keep them interested in the site. I meet with them in Vegas in 2 weeks. That's why I'm just trying to test the waters and make sure there isn't a red herring where I tell them, oh, we're looking at this and we're pursuing it. And I just want to make sure we don't have to go back with them because there's some weird thing that I'm not aware of as far as opposition. So that's why it's in front of you. So is there questions, comments, thoughts?
So the city of Walla Walla has never really presented a logical reason for their,
I mean, the reason they use is they say, oh, well, Myra Road's a freight corridor and we feel that we want to not have accesses off of it. Now, my counter argument to that, and I don't really feel I got a satisfactory response from them, because I was like, that's like the pot calling the kettle black, because we're asking for a right in, right out. You wouldn't have to pay for it. You're saying no, but meanwhile, only half-mile north of here, there's a full-on entrance and then another right in, right out going into the town center by Planet Fitness and sports. So how's it okay for you and not for us? And they tried using the argument of, oh, well, somehow that was like grandfathered in or something, but they still rebuilt Myra Road and they own Myra Road. So this isn't a state telling them no. So to me, this is all going back to like what their preferences are, because it's not a state highway, it's not a county highway. City of Walla Walla owns Myra Road. So to me, they could just as easily be like, the town center has the 2 entrances. If we're not paying for it and they just want to build it, let them. But we had meetings. At first, they just outright said no, and then I went back to the developer and I was like, well, we need to be asking like under what premise and what are you going to require for this application? And they came up with a list. Developer continued to give them stuff, and it was like still like a no answer. So that's why we started to look for alternate means to try to deal with it. But the alternate means is it does cost more money, but it's one of these things where you either fix and get a roundabout or you end up losing a whole bunch of development. So to me, it's more important to find the money somehow and keep this thing alive rather than that land being a weed patch for the next like however long as it has been the last 15 years. And keep in mind, Whitman Drive, the city originally built that. Like the city paid for all that. So that's just a bummer. It's been sitting like that long. We need to get it like going.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Next item, conceptual plan for State Route 125 at College.
Thank you.
Ristella.
Okay, so this one is also a moving part one, although not as urgent, but still important nonetheless. So if you can click on let's see here. First one would be the SR 125 and College Avenue concept, and then we'll go into the conceptual. So there's a lot of development activity that's happening to the south of town, and the big developer for the former Christensen property over the lakeside, they're going to be turning in their application to a hearing examiner this summer. As I may have mentioned earlier meeting, there's another developer called Charlie Conan that just bought out the Bob Smith property, which is like right near where South College Avenue turns to State Route 125. I've also mentioned in the past that the state has had this long-term initiative of essentially working to try to change out intersections along State Route 125, similar to what was done at Plaza Way and what Walla Walla is going to do at Myra and 125 into roundabouts through that corridor. This has become important because with Mr. Conan, he eventually wants to be developing that Smith property to a combination of residential and commercial. And especially for the commercial to take, it needs some sort of access off 125. And the state has said that really, unless you develop some sort of roundabout concept, we aren't allowing more accesses. So it forces your hand. What you can see here is we end up in a situation where to preserve full turning movements, it made we had our on-call engineer develop this mainly because the way the state allocates money for freight is really strange. It's unlike State Department of Transportation or even Transportation Improvement Board money. With each of those programs, they do requests every 2 years. With this freight grant program, they do a call for projects, but in order to get on their list, they only do a call for projects every 12 years. So if you miss it, that means you're done for 12 years. Thus, we're in a situation of we need to turn something in, otherwise we're going to rear end everyone for 12 years. So that's why we had to really hurry this thing through. Now, even once we submit it, there's time to make tweaks to design and so forth, but we're trying to get it where you can get access on College Avenue, you can get access on off D Lane, access to 125, and someday if the county ever allows us to extend the UGA over at Peppers Bridge like they should have years ago when we put the well over there, McMinn Road hopefully could go through, as you can see it going out. So this is some very early level stuff I wanted to get in front of you. So if there's any thoughts or things, let me know. I mean, we have time to talk through changes to design and so forth, but I will let you know, I did submit the thought concept of fixing this intersection in that freight mobility plan, because if I didn't, we would have been completely toast for the next 12 years. And then the reason why we're doing this, and this is all going to be coming up as we have the plans through the hearing examiner, is could you click the conceptual plan? Because this is going to show you the long-term plan for this area, because I think it's hard to conceptualize otherwise, but look at this. So this entails the Christensen property, the McKiernan property, and then the blue you see is that Conan property, so the Bob Smith property. So the big box property and McKiernan's, they'll likely take off like in a couple of years. The stuff that is fairly immediate is all the multicolored stuff on that used to be Craig Christensen's property. Now a group called College Holdings, and they're out of Post Falls, Idaho. They own it now. And they want to put a rich collection of single family homes, some senior housing in there, all sorts of stuff. And then the blue, that is Mr. Conan's property, and he wants to do a collection of single family homes. And then the gray property you see to the far southwest, that's the property the public school district just purchased, and that's for the eventual construction of a new like intermediate type school, mainly because both what the issue they're having is that pretty much all of the schools are like at max capacity. We have the opposite problem at Walla Walla. They have like emptier schools and we're packed to the gills. So they're trying to relieve pressure on both elementary school and middle school because I mean they're teaching kids like in the teacher cafeterias and like closets and stuff right now. So it's and they wouldn't have enough money to go build multiple schools. So it needs to be like a school that can relieve pressure off of both. And then that dark blue is commercial land. And as I said, the only way it really as you can see, Conan wants to have off-T lane get out to SR 125, but the only way that's going to happen is with that roundabout concept like I showed you, because the state owns 125, we don't, and they are sticklers about that sort of thing. So this helps to show you what we're working at, because there's a lot of projects we've been talking about over the years, but this gives you a greater detail. Now, the stuff that's going to be going before the hearing examiner is all the like green and orange reddish stuff, because they're going to be coming with a full plan for that this summer, and you'll see it will include some sizable park property. The blue property, while they're doing conceptual level stuff, we probably won't see something turn in officially until plans for like that traffic roundabout thing coalesces, because you know without access, good luck pretty much. So you're just stuck at that point. But this gives you a little flavor of what we're looking at for that area. Questions?
Thank you, Mike. Last item is the May 2024 development update.
Thank you. So I'll go over this briefly. What you'll notice with this is that, and you can just see it by driving around town, a lot of stuff is getting done and a lot more stuff is getting done. And with the Whitman Drive stuff, there's like a whole like teeter-totter effect where if we can get that roundabout, then there's multiple layers of stuff that'll get done, but it's all contingent on that. So Project Inspire, they've signed what it is, so I can't actually say what it is now because it's no longer in effect, the NDA. So the half of Chase Bank next to Chipotle, that's going to be a Jersey Mike's. So they've already filed their sign permit and they're doing tenant improvements, but that is that. So they should be open, I would expect, by the time the university gets back in session in the fall. So that's what they're aiming for. Project Cobble, this is the hotel. So the hotel would be, in my opinion, they're trying to compete directly against Marcus Whitman. So higher end hotel with conference center facilities, in a restaurant, probably 4 stories. And there's actually a signed purchase and sale agreement for it, but it's like contingent on this whole roundabout thing, because just the issues I mentioned spooked them a little bit. So we are working with them on that. Project Bullseye is a bigger box, and because they see some synergies with the hotel being there, that's like there's an option, but it's like tied to the hotel. So thus the issue. The other project, the same thing, is that Project OPH. That's basically like a breakfast restaurant, and same thing, because they have a captive audience with the hotel over there. That's where you get your people at. So that's tied to it as well. Project Q over at the university area, that's like a fast food restaurant. There's still ongoing negotiations with that. Project Y is a little bit of a higher end grocer. This one is they're looking potentially at the northwest corner at 12th and Myra, that vacant property that sat there for a while. And that one, it's a higher end regional grocer. They're independent, so it's not a chain. And I'll just say they have locations in like Kennewick, Pasco, and very much so in the Spokane area. So they are looking. Project FM. They really are waiting for that lakeside development to get going so they can count on the rooftops. So there's that. And the last one's Project Flight. And over coming months, you'll all be heavily engaged in this one because we ended up getting a planning grant from the Community Economic Revitalization Board to do a study about what's going on at Martin Airfield. Because the history of that site is like 6 years ago when it was under a previous owner, they didn't really need like city utilities because they weren't really doing anything. So we were gonna pull that like out of the city urban growth area, but then when Tarragon Group bought it, they bought like right before we were about to do that, and then basically put their feet down via various methods, and they stayed in the urban growth area, and we've since annexed that area, and they continue to essentially purchase various properties around it. So the plan they'll be going through this body will be what does all that look like? And then also what are the utilities that need to go out there? Because the issue is that since we originally weren't really planning on going out there, that's like a gigantic question mark about the utilities because we do not know because we originally were not going there. Residential, that is picking back up slowly as well. So the Hayden Homes Homestead subdivision. So the last phase, which are those like Y-size buildings that we're going to go over on the east side of Dones, I believe we'll see movement on that later this year. So they were the developer behind that Avery development over in Walla Walla. So they're trying to like lease and sell all those off first before they jump back into this. So that's where that's at. Villages of Fort Walla Walla, the apartment complex on Whitman Drive. So they did grade that they're getting some gap financing that they needed, and then they'll go full bore into this. We've told them that they need to re-engage and get this going like later this summer because that while they're vested under the old building code cycle, that's only if they get it done by like the end of the summer. Otherwise, they would have to go through it again because the building codes changed by the state. So time is ticking for them. Next page, the sermon development. You can see this come out of the ground right now by Wenzel Nursery. So there's various, they basically took out that older residential home and they're building apartments right over there. Lakeside, what I just mentioned on Craig Christensen's former property. What is going on there is that they signed a memorandum of understanding approved by the city council. It gives them timelines by which to turn in their development plan. Is with our TIF money, we have worked with them to get the engineering going on the new east-west road that'll connect College Avenue to the new school and then the intersection. And then this will be a longer term development. I mean, you see the amount of buildings in there, so it'll probably be pretty much the same duration as what Homestead took, which was about a decade to completion. Villages of Garrison Creek. This one has been very melodramatic, if you will. So they have put in the infrastructure. The key terminology there is the term they, because with the state of Washington development law, what's interesting is that if you basically create an LLC and then if you make it in like Montana or Delaware or a handful of other states, as long as you have an agent, so like an engineer who's representing you, all you have to put in your ownership records is like a PO box and that's it. So it's caused some issue because there's people that live nearby that have issue with it, but we don't really know who's behind it. So we can only direct them to the engineer of record and that's it. That's what we have. So if you hear if you hear inquiries about that, that is the story behind that. I've been trying to deal with it the best we can, but you deal with the cards you're dealt. So there's that project, but they're putting the infrastructure in place. Vesper, which is an apartment you can see over here, we believe on that one, they will have certificate of occupancy probably by the end of the month. And they'll be going on that. So that's pretty exciting. Then also Deer Meadows. This is on Southwest 12th Street. So that developer, JJ Kelly, they're starting to turn in plans for grading permits to go put a couple single family homes and then a street on there for the single family home. So it will almost be like if you drew a line on a map and continued Davis, similar to that. Martin Airfield, this is really a longer term investment. So you'll be engaged on the planning level work with that, because that whatever comes out of that study, that's probably going to be what they use to build out the whole thing. And it goes beyond Martin Airfield too, because they've shown a desire to be looking at additional properties that surround it as well. So it's important we get it right. And the last one's the Mark Meary development. That's Salerno Estates, and that's on the other side of the Southwest 12th. And they're working on site utilities. I'm expecting some of those homes to get out of the ground soon as well. So that is the totality of what's currently going on. Questions?
Thank you, Mike. And we're at the conclusion of the meeting. Can I get a motion to conclude the meeting?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have second?
Second.
Thank you. If there's no objection, the meeting is now concluded at 6:52 p.m. 5:52. 5:52. Thank you.